Win big with new DRF All Access past performances. With one best-in-class product, you now get all three past performance formats. Go to DRF.com and use coupon code ONEFREEPP for a free single card today.
Dan Illman, Mike Buer kicking off the graded stakes portion of the Saturday card at Keeneland with a nice pick 5 wager. It's a 50-cent minimum bet, and it's the grade 2 Woodford, a nice prep for the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. 5.5 furlongs, $350,000 is the purse, and DRFTV viewers have an opportunity to get a very nice deal on PPs for this Keeneland card. 10% off all DRF past performances. Use the coupon code DRFTV10. Shop now using the QR code. Here's the field for the grade 2 Woodford, and not surprisingly, Keeneland's going to give you your money's worth. Full fields in here, an overflow field, and we've got last year's Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint winner, the number 6 Nobles, back in, and Nobles, I think, has been racing himself back into shape. This is going to be only his 3rd start since winning the Breeders' Cup.
Yeah, it seems like I agree with that. I feel like he is racing himself into shape, comes off of a decent effort at Kentucky Downs last time. We'll see how he does here prepping for the Breeders' Cup. He does seem well spotted, Dan. These turf sprints, they never disappoint. They always get full fields.
You'd think there'd be a lot of speed in this race. I'm not sure Timeform US has it that way. However, as we take a look at our pace projector, Timeform US has a horse like Super Quest expected to make the lead. And yes, Super Quest is a fast horse, but note there's no red bar situation. I wonder if a horse like One Timer, the number 5, is going to be sent out of there, Mike. No Nay Hudson, the 5, has also shown plenty of speed.
Yeah, there are a bunch of horses in here who feel like they can show speed if they, are inclined to be ridden that way, but they don't necessarily need to be on the lead. I do kind of feel like Super Quest is a horse who's at his best when he's up front. So I'm assuming they'll go. Timeform US thinks the 9 Coppola will be up there. I can see that. He's a pretty handy horse, pretty tactical. He's outside in this race. No balls. He's going to be forward in here, Dan. He could go to the lead if they wanted to, but he does not need to be there.
Even a horse like the 12 XY Speed might feel the need to try to rush out of there from a tough post position. The 2 Axthelm has the fastest Timeform US late pace rating, would benefit from a meltdown, but it's going to have to work his way through a bulky field. Let's start things off with a number 1 One Timer, who's always been a little bit of an underrated horse, and maybe they got too aggressive with him last time out, wheeling him back on only 1 week's notice and doing so against Cogburn, undoubtedly right now the best turf sprinter in the country. I know he likes Kentucky Downs, so you take a shot there, especially with a horse who likes that course with those purses, but that was a big ask.
Yeah, you're not supposed to be too hard on him for that one. His prior race was, pretty good. I didn't see a huge excuse for him in that race, but just couldn't quite get the job done. He's very consistent, Dan. He's got a top race in him that's going to put him right there at the end of this thing. You sort of pointed out earlier that he could use his speed from the rail here. Even if that just means getting forward and getting into a really good spot, because he's very tactical.
I wonder if Saffie Joseph gave Axthelm a little summer break so that he could really concentrate on the racing at Kentucky Downs. He came back 2 starts back with a nice off-the-pace victory, and then actually wheeled back on 6 days rest to take on Cogburn, and it worked out pretty well for the Connections. They finished ahead of 5 of the horses they'll be running against in the Woodford. It was a pretty good 3rd for Axthelm, but just no match for this monster.
I mean, this is, in some ways the best race this horse has ever run. The fact that it happened at Kentucky Downs doesn't necessarily inspire tons of confidence in me, but he certainly ran well in there. His last 2 starts are both good. We'll see. This doesn't really have that one race that prior to those last 2, Dan. He doesn't have that one race you can point to suggest that he's going to be a major player in here.
Always been a fan of the number 3 Charcoal. He doesn't win very often, and I wonder if he's just a notch below graded stakes class. They ran him in the Cogburn race last time out. He tried to make a run at Cogburn on the backstretch, and that just wasn't going to work out. He was shrugged off. His race 2 starts back at Ellis, though, at 26-1. He rallied from off the pace to win, and he got a respectable fig.
Yeah, it does seem like maybe he's just in good form right now, and so they're just going to press on here and run him in another, pretty tough race for him, I think. I'm not sure that his best race necessarily gets it done, assuming everybody else shows up in this spot. But this horse, he's been in good form recently. They might as well take another shot.
I guess there's 1 of 2 ways you could look at the number 4 Hour Shot. One is that he's a really admirably consistent horse that's going to show up, or B, you're going to say, I'm starting to get a little bit tired of his act because he's figured in these races and he just can't get over the hump, as in his last start. The Harvey Pack Stakes, which featured a fast pace going 5.5 furlongs. Our Shot ran another nice race. He's going to finish second, but Big Invasion's going to come right over the top on him and pip him at the wire.
Big Invasion's a good horse when things go his way. He came from last in this race. So, our shot always on the outside in here. He has every chance to win, Dan, and he's just not quite good enough. But it's another really strong performance from him. I mean, even with sort of the lack of wins on his card, he shows up every single time, and he's going to get the right trip in this race because he's a tactical and handy kind of horse. I mean, I don't love him in here, but I don't hate him either.
We talked about Nobles perhaps racing himself back into shape in his third start of the year. Maybe the same is true with No Nay Hudson. I like the way he finished off his 2023 campaign in a high-level allowance at Gulfstream Park. He's had 2 starts since, including his most recent race, the Green Flash Handicap at Del Mar, and I thought he ran sneaky well. Let's watch No Nay Hudson. This pace was very hot. No Nay Hudson made the first run into the pace, and he gets run down by 2 horses that came from way out of it. Notorious, who's going to be a major factor, I would think, in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint, and the late-kicking Calbred Johnny Padres.
Yeah, maybe he moved too soon in here. I thought all in all the trip was there for him. I thought he really ran a nice race in here, Dan, and he just can't quite hold on at the end. It's another good performance from him. I don't know why, but I'm a fan of this horse for some reason. And what I like maybe most about him is he does have speed, so he can be forward if they want to be. But I liked the way they sort of changed up his running style a little bit earlier last year. They took him off the pace, and he won that stake at Churchill from the back. And I was like, that's a good sign for this horse going forward. If they can sort of ride him however they need to ride him to fit the way the race is being run, that's a benefit for this horse.
Nobles ran big in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint, obviously. He also got a very nice ride and trip. The rail was there for him. He was able to save ground through the turn into the stretch, not a straw in his path, and he got it done over the aforementioned Big Invasion. They gave him plenty of time. He came back with a useful effort behind Super Quest, and again, he's not beating Cogburn at this point, especially in that kind of race at Kentucky Downs, where Cogburn got away with an easy pace and, more importantly, handled the course.
Yeah, he's just way too good. I thought Nobles ran fine in that race. I mean, he just wasn't quite good enough, but there's nothing wrong with the performance. And I do think he moved forward off of the Saratoga start. Maybe he moves forward again here, and maybe things will just go really well for Ravelli and his team again with this horse, because they brought him to the Breeders' Cup last time. I know it was a price, but he was in great form heading to the Breeders' Cup, and he got the job done there. And it feels like they're sort of trying to work their way back to that race again.
Seems like a big ask for the 7, Let My People Go. You could argue some of his best races have come on the synthetic surface, especially at Presque Isle Downs, where he won a stakes race 3 starts back. Just didn't threaten 2 back at Monmouth against Arzak, who's also in this field. Last time out of Kentucky Downs, he ran okay, but he's going to have to do a lot better.
Yeah, just didn't see the race that you could really point to for him. I mean, he's got that one big figure from last summer at Ellis Park, but even that day he was no match for one-timer, and he was only second best. So I don't know. I can't find the race then that makes me want to bet him against this field.
Super Quest is our expected pace setter according to Timeform US, going out for trainer Mark Cassie, who had a huge summer. Super Quest ran fine in the Harvey Pack. That was the video we showed. He broke sharp that day, pushed a 31-1 shot that ended up finishing 5th, made the lead turning into the stretch, and just couldn't go with Big Invasion and our shot. I expect him to be right there when the field turns for home, and he's lightly raced enough to still project a little bit of upside.
Yeah, I think all those things are true. I actually like every one of his races. I mean, he's a really good turf sprinter. I know we talked about him. He was supposed to run, I want to say Parks?
Yes.
A few weeks ago. That turf monster came off the turf. So that didn't work out for them. So I don't know if this is plan B or not. It probably is. But still, this horse is good, man. All of his races are rock solid. He's got plenty of early speed. But I think he'll be fine if he doesn't make the lead in here. We'll see. I want to wait and see what kind of price he is, because I wouldn't take a short price on him, but I think he can win.
Coppola, the number 9, was put in a very tough situation last time out. Not only was he in against Cogburn, but he was the one chasing Cogburn in the early part of that race, and that cooked his goose. He tired pretty badly over that testing Kentucky Downs turf course. His race 2 starts back at Ellis was okay, although I thought Charcoal was better than him that day.
Me too. I don't care about the race last time. Didn't love the loss 2 starts back. I thought that was a race he easily could have won, and he didn't.
Let's move on to the number 10, Arzak. Arzak loves Keeneland. That could be the big angle for this horse. He won last year's Woodford. He won the Shakertown this spring. They then ran him in the Jaipur against Cogburn. Shame. Cogburn ran that, world record 5.5 that day. Arzak ran just fine. I didn't love his race in the Wolf Hill 2 starts back, where he was belatedly kicking on for third, but never looked like he was going to win. And last time out in the Harvey Pack, he just seemed a little bit flat. I wonder if the Jaipur took some of the steam out of Arzak, but I respect his consistency, and he does love this course.
Yeah, very fair point. That maybe he's, over the top a little bit here after the Jaipur. We'll see. The only thing that I will point out about the Harvey Pack, Dan, is that at that time, at end of the Saratoga meet there on that outer turf versus the Mellon course, you did not want to be towards the inside. You wanted to be on the outside paths in that race. That's where the winner was. That's where our shot was. Superquest was contesting the pace outside. This horse was down on the rail all the way around the turn, all the way through the upper stretch, and it just didn't really work out for him. I'm going to give him a pass for that one. And I thought his first couple of races this year, to me, they suggest he's as good as he's ever been.
The 11 is Gear Jockey. He's a millionaire, and he usually does his best work over at Kentucky Downs, where he won their turf sprint in 2021 and 2023. Not only was he in against Cogburn last time out, but it was his first start in 10 months. You could certainly give him a mulligan for that. That being said, I've always liked him at longer distance sprints, sort of like 6 and 6.5 and 7. If he gets some pace, he can kick on. He can benefit from his last race, obviously, his first off the bench, but he still has to prove that he can do it at these shorter distances.
Yeah, even with that long leg, you sort of expect him to run pretty well usually at Kentucky Downs, and he just didn't really do it last time. So we'll see if he's got anything left in. Obviously, the campaign last year, it was limited. It left a lot to be desired outside of that race at Kentucky Downs where he got the job done. It's a real question of how much he still has left. I mean, at some kind of huge price, if you told me you wanted to use him, I wouldn't argue too hard, but he's got a lot to prove.
Perhaps XY Speed was just ridden too aggressively last time out. His last 2 wins came at Gulfstream going 5/8, and he did it from off the pace. And I give him some extra points. They're not easy to win going 5/8 at Gulfstream from out of it. They tried to have him on the pace last time out at Monmouth. He couldn't run with a good field. Nothing better as a solid sprinter. Came back to place in a stake at Colonial with a 93 buyer. This is just a very tough spot from a class standpoint, and especially from a post position one.
Yeah, post position is not great. He has been in some really fast-paced races, but I do like that he's adaptable, and it does feel like he got into really good form earlier this year, so that's a positive, Dan. I think there's a major question, though, of how good this horse is without Lasix. He hasn't really run well without it.
13 through 15 are also eligibles, and I think if one got into the race, the one we'd be interested in is the 14 Hedwig.
Yeah, I'm a big Hedwig fan. He's still lightly raced. He's another one coming out of a Kentucky Downs race that I just don't care about.
Let's take a look at our top selections for the Woodford. Again, we're kicking off a 50-cent pick 5. Mike, you're going with Arzak, the defending champion. He loves Keeneland. He's very tactical.
Yeah, and I think he's going to be a good price in here. And I do think maybe he comes into this just a little bit dirtied up. His good race gives him a real chance in here. I'm not way against no balls. I suspect he's going to run pretty well in here and take another step forward.
Yeah, I'm expecting Nobles to run his usual good race here. I think third start off the layoff. This will be the final prep for the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint, and I think they got to have him cranked up tight. 6-4-8-5 for me, 10-6-5-4 for Mike. It's the Woodford, and we're just getting started on a classy Saturday afternoon of racing at Keeneland. Good luck.
Hey, friends, you look like you're in need of a winner. If you enjoyed the great content right here, just click and subscribe right here and enjoy the great DRF.com Race of the Days, the phenomenal stakes previews, and so much more. Many of that content featuring me and my exceptional selections. Trust me, you won't regret it.